Hi there, my name is Mihai John. I'm a HVAC engineer. Also, I have a gas license, commercial and domestic. I have F-gas, MVQ3 in electrics. I have a Omron and Siemens control license. I haven't finished all my study, but I know a lot about the control. So today I would like to speak about poor integration, and I want to make clear why some technicians are sent for the jobs that do not belong to them, and how big companies spending millions and the client pay senselessly millions for technicians which drives hundreds miles because the integration is badly done, and this centralized information which is monitored by offices which are hundreds miles away will lead to a lot of errors when technician is needed to sort out either a boiler or an electrical motor or HVAC equipment like air conditioning and so on. So let's start with the beginning. On my previous video I talked about a contactor, how a contactor works and how it drives a motor. Now I want you to pay attention to this contactor, how it's sending back the input to the programmable logic control, and it will tell its status. As you will see now, when you enable the contactor, the motor starts turning, and you will see there's an input which goes from the PLC into the contactor and then is returning. That tells that tells the engineer which is monitoring via the internet this system that the contactor, it is enabled. But most of the time the integration is wrong, because onto this HMI you can read that the motor it's healthy, and that's very bad. Let's talk now about these fans. Now this is the way you will see the fan. I just make a little gash into that fan box so you can see how the fan is turning. Now you will see, you'll enable these fans, and the contactor have 4 switches. 3 of them, it's L1, L2, L3 is the power circuit, and the last one, which is orange, it's an auxiliary switch which actually will return the signal into this programmable logic control. One of the bad thing in this situation is that if you will turn off the isolating switch, you will still have the signal back into the programmable logic control, and the programmable logic control will tell the HMI that the fan is running. This is a bad integration, and in many occasions I have to drive hundreds miles just to figure out that someone turned off the switch. Going further, if you remember, we talked about heating system, how the heating system works, and how they control and so on. Now, as you will see here on this heating system, you have a pressurization unit, you have a pump, and you have the boiler. Now all these 3 normally should be correctly integrated into this programmable logic controller or building management control or any other form of control are you using. If you're not doing this and you have a central monitoring system somewhere, you might send the wrong technicians, because sometimes you have to send either way an electrician or a gas engineer or a refrigeration engineer, a conditioning engineer, I'm sorry. I just want to talk about these pumps, how they're supposed to be integrated, and what I found in at least 50 stores that I'm working in London. So this is the contactor, and that's the PLC. Some company doesn't want to pay money and they use a very basic small programmable logic controller. However, they have the ability to connect this programmable logic controller and to monitor them directly through their laptop in their offices, and this is a good thing, but because the integration it is very poor, sometime will have a lot of incorrect job demands. As you will see here, the engineer decides to run the signal cable through the isolating switch and to the contactor. That's a little bit better, but yet if you'll see on the pump, the flow switch is not integrated. And let's see what happened. When you will enable the contactor, you will see that the programmable logic control, you will send a signal, but the signal will stop at the isolating switch. You'll see it. So the signal is not going. So that tells to the guy which monitoring the system that the circuit is interrupted. So the pump is not running. And then he can send an electrician to say, okay, look, the signal is interrupted. One electrician goes there and they say, well, someone by mistake turned off the isolating switch, or maybe a connection is broken somewhere. But that's not good enough, because you will turn on the isolating switch and now the pump is running, as you will see. The power circuit passes by, goes straight to the motor, the pump is running. In the same time, the signal wire is returning to the programmable logic control. And the guy will see that the pump is running. And this is good only in this situation. Let's see what happens if the circuit breakers pops up because of malfunction. If the circuit breakers pops up, the signal is still running despite the power circuit is interrupted. And guess what the guy, which is remotely monitoring the system to his laptop, will see on his front end panel. As far as he's concerned, the pump is running. But the engineer which turned to the premises will call and they say, hey, the pump is not running. And they start arguing a little bit on the phone, because the guy from the office will say, hey, the pump is running, I can see it on my computer, it's everything okay, so you better try to investigate what's wrong. And the engineer which is on the spot say, no, the pump is not running, I'm here, I can see it. So how do you see the pump is running when it is not? And it will be this little conflict backwards and forwards. And obviously the engineer on the field is right, because he can see with his eyes. Now you only have to take out your tools, your laptop, whatever, and then you have to do an investigation. And the investigation will split into one. You will check why the pump is not running. It could be a short circuit, or it could be an earth leak, or it can be a mechanical damage. It can be anything. But also you have to investigate the control philosophy, and then you'll find the truth. Now, the same thing happened with the pressurization unit. The pressurization unit normally is directly connected to the power, but some people like to enable them via the programmable logic control. I will explain to you about how the program should be written in this case. And they will enable the pressurization unit, which will follow its own protocol, because it's got a printed circuit board inside. Now, this is your pressurization unit, it's ready to go. As you will see, the signal is not passing by because the circuit is interrupted. And when this has happened, the signal is not coming back into the programmable logic control. I found sometimes the pressurization unit having the separate power supply and only sending inputs to the PLC. But this is one of the rare cases where I found this type of mistakes. Now you will turn on the isolating switch, and then the signal will go back into the PLC. You see, the signal it goes and the signal comes back. This is wonderful. Everybody is happy. We have a perfect signal. The problem starts to be instead when we have a malfunction into the system and the circuit breakers are tripping. As you will see, as the PLC get the information from a different power supply, it will still send the signal into the isolating switch and the contactor. So because of this situation, the engineer which is monitoring remotely this system will see on his display that the pressurization unit is healthy and is working, despite it isn't. And this might not be his or her fault. This is an issue related to the control philosophy. And again, you will do your own investigation. You will check the reason why the pressurization unit tripped the circuit breaker. Could be a malfunction. It's got pumps, it's got printed circuit boards, all kinds of sensors, the wiring they could be any electrical fault. But it's not only this. If the unit is faulty, it should be integrated that way, so that engineer which remotely monitors the system will see it. So again, the engineer turn on the spot and, oh, hello, I'm the engineer on call. I just want to let you know that the pressurization unit is not working. How is not working? Because I can see on my computer it is working. I said, no, it is not working because I'm here and I can see it. It is not. There's a malfunction with this unit, and the circuit breakers interrupt the circuit. Oh, that is impossible because I can see the unit is enabled. So the guy which monitored the system remotely might not even know. He's not aware of the integration problems. Now let's talk about the boilers. You know, the boiler is the last one to start. After a programmable logic control checks everything, then the boiler will be enabled. As an example, if the pressurization unit is not working, the pump wouldn't start. If the pump wouldn't start, the boiler wouldn't start. If you have a fire alarm, nothing will start. If you have a gas leak, nothing will start. So because the programmable logic control send an input to the HMI telling the HMI it's everything good, the boiler is enabled. And just like any other feature, the programmable logic control will send the signal through the isolating switch, through the contactor, and then it will come back into the programmable logic control. I only found this type of poor integration a couple of times, and from my own perspective, this is pretty dangerous because this boiler can run without ventilation, and that can put people's life in danger. And also the boiler can be forced to run without the heating agent pump running or without the pressurization unit, because as I said, if the power circuit will be interrupted because of one of these items malfunction, like the pump or pressurization unit or the fan, then the technician which is remotely monitoring the system will not be aware, because this poor integration will not send any input on his front end panel, and the technician will believe that everything it is okay. Although when the client will call these people which remotely monitoring the heating cooling system, they will send a wrong engineer. Like if the boiler is not running, you might can send a gas engineer, but the boiler might not run because of the pump or of the fan, and then you need a HVAC engineer which is trained, or you might need an electrician which is trained. So if you look to this picture now, the HMI will tell you that everything it is okay, which might not be true. This HMI will only tell you the status of a contactor and of isolating switch. However, you can see it will display on the computer all these items which supposed to work are displayed, but which is not always true. In the next video, I will show you how I would integrate these ones. Again, the technician will turn to the premises and they say, well, you know, there's nothing wrong with the boiler. Unfortunately, I have a problem with the pressurization unit. I have a problem with the pump. I might have a problem with the ventilation system. And because they are interlocked, they're supposed to be interlocked, the boiler doesn't run. But because the pump is not running, the boiler overheats itself. Or the boiler is not running because it's got its own flow switch inside. And the programmable logic control It's asking for the boiler to run. The client called you, you told him the boiler is running, is nothing wrong, and the client said it's very cold in the store because your integration doesn't let you know the fact that the boiler have a fault, and you only have a contactor status display onto your HMI.